Welcome, Derek. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Great to be here.
I know a lot of people were waiting for this moment. We've always seen you in our events through the video camera. Are you excited?
I am really excited. I'm really warm.
You're brutally jet lagged as well?
I'm a little jet lagged, but I just took a power nap, so I'm good to go.
All right, let's start with the first question.
Let's give it up for Alex for this whole day. He's like unbelievable. He's like
extra 30 seconds without questions. Is that why you
like he's doing the interviews. He's cooking the food.
I'm cleaning up afterwards.
He's definitely going to be cleaning up. So you've done a great job today.
All right, thank you for that. Let's get started. Some of these people, they want to know, how did you start with this? Because there's a lot of tech meetups, there's startup meetups, but they don't survive over time. How did you start, and why did you decide to continue it?
Well, in 2009, I left my job at Electronic Arts. I had wanted to be an entrepreneur, but I didn't really have an idea that I thought was worth quitting my job for. And so I sort of, over 2 years, kind of decided, hey, I'm gonna do this. So in the summer of 2009, my wife had our first child, and that seemed like the best time to leave. To quit.
Quitability, right?
Yeah, it just made sense.
Yes.
And so the baby was born, and about 6 weeks later, I quit my job. I was offered a double promotion to stay, and I remember in the car where I was and hearing this, and it was in the middle of the recession in the United States, and I realized that if with what they were offering me to stay, if I wasn't really excited about it, I needed to run. And get away, because it was much more than I had deserved. And so I left, and I started building, I started trying to sell this product that I had come up with. And over the next 2 years, the only thing that I did that was bigger, as time went on, was every 6 months I failed more spectacularly than the previous 6 months. Yeah. And so, the first thing I quit my job for, I couldn't sell the product. I was trying as hard as I possibly could. I couldn't sell it. And then I started building products for some different companies, and that didn't work. And then I built an iPad game, and that didn't work. And then
that horrendous game we saw in your presentation in Silicon Valley?
What's that?
That was a terrible game you showcased in Silicon Valley a couple of years back?
It was a terrible game. It was a disaster. Yeah, I raised money on it. I lost all the investors' money. I was completely ashamed and embarrassed about it. I'm still embarrassed about it.
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
But I'd be more embarrassed if I had really weird long sideburns, but I don't.
Yeah.
So luckily, I don't. Could be worse.
I choose them. Yeah, they're not at all.
But while all these things are going on, I started hosting these events in my office, and a friend and I, we called it Startup Grind. We invited a few friends to attend. This was in early 2010. It was nothing. I mean, it really was nothing. It was not meant to be anything. It was for us to kind of have fun and brainstorm and meet new people and help each other. We did it for a few months. Not very many people came. We tried putting on about 10 different platforms. We tried different ways to get people, we tried Google Wave, and we tried Google Groups, and we tried Evite, and all these different things. And after about 6 months, we had an event where we went to go see the Social Network movie in Silicon Valley, very meta, and 4 people showed up. And I got in the car that night. The event was at midnight, so it was my fault.
Yeah.
But we got in the car, and honestly, I said, what a freaking waste of time, because I was spending 1 day a month on Startup Grind, but really I needed to focus on my startup, which was 29 days of the month. And I sat there, and I just sort of decided, well, I didn't feel like I'd really given it my all, and I said, I'm going to try 2 more events. And if it works, then we'll keep doing it. And if it doesn't, I'm just going to shut it down. And the next event was about 6 weeks later, and we had 40 people. And that kind of that was finally some positive reinforcement that this was something worth continuing on, so we just kept going after that.
Why didn't you quit? Because I remember early in the days, one of the value of startup grind, or the unofficial fourth value of startup grind is never give up, right? Never quit. Why didn't you quit then?
I've thought about it a lot because I should have quit. There's lots of times that I should have quit. There's times even still today that I think that I should quit. Not startup
Not
grind,
today.
but just not literally today.
Not
No, I've
literally
not
today,
thought
yeah.
about quitting today.
Not now.
It's like, geez, I landed in Barcelona. Like, I just got to go back. I
Yeah.
gotta go back.
Forgot my charger.
No, that's not funny. So I constantly have self-doubt in what I'm doing, and I constantly second-guess myself, and I constantly sort of am angry at myself with the mistakes, the dumb mistakes I make. Everybody's gonna make mistakes, but the dumb mistakes I make, I'm constantly angry at myself about that stuff. But at the same time, I think the feeling that I get as I build products that people like, and I've built lots of things as I've just explained that people didn't like, so I know the difference. But the feeling that I get when people interact with a product that I've been a part of is by far the greatest professional satisfaction that I think you can have. And so I think that what becomes worth the effort and the energy and the difficulty and the no's that we heard in the last talk. That's what's worth it. When you finally do start to get a few yeses, if you can survive long enough to get to that point, it's incredibly rewarding, and so that's sort of what keeps me going.
When did you see that was literally taking off? Was it when somebody else approached you and said like, "Hey, can I do this event in my city?" And first of all, what did you think of that person?
So from when we started, when people started actually showing up, it took another year went by, and we started to get a lot of people to come, and we weren't keeping lists, we weren't actively marketing it, we were getting great speakers, we had the best speakers in the valley, and it was free at the time, and so we would get 500 people that would RSVP to come sometimes, and two things happened. One is that I was basically running out of money, and so because of my other thing, which was I was spending one day of the month on Startup Grind and everybody liked it, and I was spending 29 days of the month on this other thing, and not really anybody liked it. And so because I'm really smart, I was like talking to one of my mentors one time, and he was like, I don't know about this thing you're spending all your time on that nobody likes, but the Startup Grind thing, like, that's kind of cool, and people seem to like that. Maybe you should spend a little more time on that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, I guess, yeah, that would make sense. So two things happened. One is that I saw this guy walk into my event right at this time, and he walked over to the food. And do you guys have Domino's pizza here?
Yeah, Domino's
pizza. It's like the worst pizza, okay? Yeah. So in America, it is
They're not your sponsor, I take.
Yeah, they're not a sponsor.
Okay,
no,
yeah.
no,
not anymore.
So we do say no to some sponsors.
Yeah.
We do not want Domino's. So it's the cheapest pizza you can buy in America. So that's the pizza that we had at our events because we were broke. And so he walks over to the table of food and he stacks like 8 pieces of pizza, and then he walked out. This is before the event even started.
The pizza was still warm.
The pizza was warm, and it dawned on me that I said, oh my gosh, this isn't a startup community. This is like a startup homeless shelter.
Yeah. Bootstrapping.
Because
it's bootstrapping.
So I just said, this guy, he doesn't represent my values. This isn't what I thought we created, okay?
Yeah.
So we decided from that day we were going to charge. And price became a filter. I said, you're not going to come for Domino's pizza if you have to pay, 10 or 20 bucks. So, and what happened, which was crazy, was the next month, 60% of the people came back, but they paid. And they came up to me and said, thank you so much for charging. I've been wanting to help you. I said, well, there was like a donation jar. You could have put money in, but, whatever. So that happened, and then that created a business model. So without that, we wouldn't have it. And then the second thing was, as you said, somebody came and said, "Can I do this in my city?" And because I'm so dumb, I was like, my first reaction was, "That's the worst idea I've ever heard. No one will ever want this." He said, "Well, I'm in Los Angeles." I'm like, "You're in Los Angeles. There must be 20 events like this."
Yeah.
And he said, "No, we need your values. We need the community. We need what you do, and we want your help." And so we decided to try it. And to my surprise, it worked. And then we tried a few others, and it worked there. And then that, very slowly, we eventually started working on it full time. We sold the company that we had before for almost nothing, and just to get out of it. And then we have totally focused on Startup Grind for the last 5 years, and in that time, we've grown to about 300 active chapters. We host about 150 events a month in 150 cities with amazing people like Finn and Alex and many others that are here. We'll host about 100,000 entrepreneurs this year. We educate about 10 million entrepreneurs through all of our channels on a monthly basis. And so very humble beginnings, but it's kind of,
It's growing slightly big.
grown.
Yeah, it's going places. I wanted to ask, we've got 300, almost 300 chapters, give or take, right? And I feel like you're giving away part of your company, like your child, if you will. And you're putting it at risk, right? Because we're onboarding people you've literally never met, only via video conference. And how do you feel about it? Have you had any bad experiences with somebody, like not respecting the values or?
Well, for some chapters, we have to keep a closer eye than others, like yours.
Like yours, yeah.
Yeah, it's very.
I could see that
It's
coming.
scary what happens in Barcelona sometimes with Alex and Carlos too. Very, very sketchy guy.
Very sketchy guy.
Yeah, it's a risk. I mean, we have chapters all over the world. We had our first event in Iraq last week. Kind of scary, honestly. We have an active chapter in Kabul, Afghanistan. Every month, they have 200 entrepreneurs. I encourage you to go look at the pictures. If you want to see something inspiring, go to Facebook and look for Startup Grind Kabul. It's unbelievable what's going on there. It was a risk. I thought originally when the guy from LA came to me, my other thought was, I'm going to get sued because exactly what you described. But honestly, we've never really had a lot of problems, and we find good people. We don't bat 100%. We don't get it right every single time, but we get it right a lot of the time, and things just kind of work out. I don't know.
What do you think of people who say, like, putting out events and literally living off events is not a real job? I get that all the time.
I say screw those people.
Yeah. With the stick, yeah.
So I mean, the whole reason we did it was to educate ourselves. So when you're in a big company, the company spends a lot of money educating you constantly. When I worked at EA, they would bring in people from IDEO, and they'd bring in people from all these other different companies that would come teach us how to be good at our jobs, and they'd send us on retreats and do all this other stuff. When you're in a startup, you can't do any of that stuff. It's you against the world. And so one of the best ways to get educated, time effective, cost effective, and to meet people is through events. So I don't go to events all the time, but when I can find a high quality event to go to, I go. Last week I attended an event where Larry Ellison was speaking. He's the founder of Oracle, and he was speaking with about 30 entrepreneurs, and I found it riveting to listen to his story as you would feel if Alex was telling his story. You would feel the same way. But was it a waste of time? It was an event. It cost me about 4 hours of my day, but I found it incredibly enlightening and immediately found applications for my own business. So.
And literally, you're living in the cradle of entrepreneurship. You're meeting the best entrepreneurs, investors, people who are literally changing the world. Like we've hosted Eric Schmidt, we've hosted co-founders of Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever you want. MC Hammer, yeah. And I wanted to know, you have seen a lot of things going on.
We haven't had Messi yet.
Was
but I
that?
don't know. Lionel Messi?
Not
You know,
yet, not yet.
Yeah, I don't know if
I think he
anybody.
struggles with English though.
I
but
think
yeah,
I think he's in Barcelona. If maybe the chapter director there could get him, it would be.
talk to him.
It would be really,
Get
really
rid
great.
of him. I wanted to ask like some good things, bad things that are going on in Silicon Valley, like trends lately. It's been kind of messy in Silicon Valley. Maybe you want to comment on that.
Which part?
Not personal stories.
My
but
own personal mess that
No.
I've created.
Obviously.
You know, there's 100,000 people that move to the Bay Area every single month. There's a lot of people fighting for, you know, their careers and to make money and to change the world or whatever lens you want to look through. I've lived there for 12 years. I've lived there longer than I've lived anywhere else. Actually, I grew up in Europe. We lived in Bordeaux for 3 years and Frankfurt in Germany. I lived in Europe for 6 years as a child. So I kind of see the Bay Area as home now. But there are people that come in and out, and there are people that don't play a long game. I see myself as an entrepreneur for 10 or 20 or 30 years. I hope I have the energy to do that. You know, the entrepreneurs that I see that do that, those are the ones that I aspire to be like. But people come in and they'll play the 3-year game or the 5-year game. If you're here today, maybe the day's almost over, but you know, think about this over the next few months or when you meet people. If you think about what's my relationship going to be with this person in 2 or 3 years instead of just right now today, or you're desperate for money right now, or you're desperate for an engineer, or you're desperate for whatever you're desperate for, validation. If you think about how can I help this person, and maybe that'll come back and repay me at some point. It will, I promise it will. So there are people that have that long game mindset, and they're all over the valley, and there are people that have the short game mindset, and they're all over the valley too. You know, so yeah.
How do you think like the values that we've got very, very set and so have contributed to the success of Startup Grind worldwide? Because they're literally contradicting cultures with the values of Startup Grind. How do you face these situations?
Well, there is and there isn't. I mean, the give first, one of the things you find in Silicon Valley that I was shocked by is like people are unbelievably giving in the Valley in terms of their time, their network. I've had all sorts of people that have opened doors for me. I'll give an example. Well, our first speaker of Startup Grind is a venture capitalist named Spencer Tall. He introduced me to a guy named Steve Blank, who is a well-known author and entrepreneur. Steve became an advisor for Startup Grind. He spoke at Startup Grind a number of times, became an advisor, all for free. We've never paid him anything, and he has helped us immensely through those things, through his network, through his time, through his ideas, and he's never really asked me for anything. And I found that to be fairly common. There's a guy named George Zachary who helped me identify what our values were. He was the first investor in Twitter. He's one of Elon Musk's very best friends, who has spent a tremendous amount of time helping me and mentoring me, and never gotten anything in return. So there's that side of it, which very much is representative of our values, and there's things that aren't. I don't know. I'm kind of an optimist, so I see probably more of the good than the bad. Look, some of the bad things about Silicon Valley, we work constantly. It's impossible to live there from a cost standpoint. And the expectations are huge. I'm almost the same age as Mark Zuckerberg. I'm just a little bit older than him. I live on the same street as him. We're not in the same tax bracket.
Yeah.
But I'm not competing with Mark Zuckerberg. I'm not Mark Zuckerberg in many ways. He has curly hair.
You wanted to say it. Yeah. I was waiting for it.
He's Jewish. I'm Mormon.
Yeah.
I mean, he went to Harvard. I didn't. So there's
a lot of differences.
There's a lot of differences with us, but I'm not competing with him. I sort of see it as like if you've ever in a video game, if you've ever done like a racing game, and they have these like time trials, and you can go around the track, right? And you've got this like your best time it comes to this like ghost car. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Got a few people like, dude, what are you talking about? So that's how I see what I'm doing every single day. Is I am chasing my car around the track, and whatever my greatest potential is, whatever the God-given gifts that I have, or the ones that I didn't get. I'm not worried about that. All I'm trying to do is be my best every single day, year after year after year. And after 5, 6, 7, I'm now 8 years into my entrepreneurial career. Well, find me in 15 years. And I think if I just keep trying to beat the pace car, that I'm gonna be in a good place. And so, in the Valley, a lot of people, if you start comparing yourself to other people, it starts to get pretty discouraging fast, because you'll never be the most wealthy, you'll never be the most successful, you'll never have the best business model, you'll never have the best, most talented engineers, but you can be the best that you can be.
As an American who has lived in Europe, actually, you think that has shaped you and helped understanding other cultures?
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, so I lived, as a child, we lived here, and then in the summers we'd go back to the States. So, I really felt as much European as I felt American, for the better part of high school and junior high. And I think the thing that I learned about Europe is, living in Europe, is there's so many different kinds of people. There's so much diversity. I went to school with Moroccan kids and Algerian kids and kids from Denmark and Sweden. And what I've learned, and this is what I've learned across the world now, is that look, at its most fundamental level, people around the world are all the same, and that same commonality is that they all want to feed their kids. Like, it doesn't matter if you're in Iran, or you're in Afghanistan, or you're in Israel, or you're in the States, or you're in Barcelona, Spain. Ultimately, you want to feed your family, take care of your family. And that's the beauty of entrepreneurship, is we can all relate at that level, that we're all trying to make that happen for ourselves. And in Europe specifically, you just come in contact with so many different types of people and so many kinds of people. You have to be able to relate to people, or you'll never be successful. And in the States, a lot of times, we have such a huge problem with race in the United States. But we constantly right now, we just look at, this is what I am, and I only can see what's wrong with you. I can't see the commonality that we have, And like you and I said a really mean thing about your really cool sideburns, but
yeah.
But actually, the thing that I was thinking about, I had to like find that, because the first thing I thought when I looked at you, I was like, man, I like those Nikes.
Yeah.
I'm a big Nike guy, and
I noticed.
I wouldn't always wear the shoes that you wear, but I would wear those shoes.
So the running shoes.
Yeah.
They're the special ones for special people. There's something wrong with the dates of our conferences. I remember the last one in San Francisco. Trump was recently elected. We had the one in London. There was the Brexit. There's something happening today as well. Who's choosing the dates, and why are we doing these? I know I chose these ones, but...
It's bad. Yeah,
Are we forecasting the apocalypse?
Shut it down. I don't know what could happen. It just keeps snowballing too, right? You're right. When we did London for the first time, it was the week before Brexit, and I was at 10 Downing Street, where the Prime Minister is, and for this little event that we had right before, and I just remember them laughing. That like what's going to happen? Like, they were laughing, like nothing.
Nothing's
going
to
to
happen.
This is just a joke.
Like
and
Trump,
then
right?
like the next week, it was like the Brexit. It was crazy. So yeah, we take credit for that. Sure.
Yeah. We contributed probably. There was a lot of people, saying like, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. Probably they were laughing their asses off out
That's
backstage.
right. That's right.
Just to a little bit wrap this up, I wanted to ask. there's a problem with gender. There's not enough. There's no culture of not enough women speaking at conferences, especially in Europe. As opposed in the States, probably you've been addressing this problem more often than not, but not so much here in Europe. Why do you think it's that, and how can we contribute from Startup Grind?
Nothing like two dudes talking about
Yeah,
problem diversity problems.
you're an opinion leader. I'll give you that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
70% of our team at Startup Grind is female. And our team is unbelievable, and I attribute that greatly because we have amazing women that run the team. I think it's great. People are trying to figure out, talking about it. I've thought about, I've got 2 little girls, so I've thought about, like, what am I going to do to encourage them to be, sometimes I don't know if I actually want my kids to be entrepreneurs. But
working at EA, right?
But if they want to be entrepreneurs, like, how do I give my daughters an equal opportunity that I give my boys? So, but look, I think things are changing, and it's all good. So, every time these stories come out, every time somebody speaks up, whether it's good or bad, or whether it's true or not true or half true, or I think it's good. I think it creates dialogue and it leads to change. So, do your part.
2 last questions very quickly. First of all, what are you afraid of?
That's a good question. I sort of touched on this a little bit, but I think first of all, I think my number one responsibility is my family. So being a good dad, being a good husband, which is really hard. I think it's especially hard as an entrepreneur. It's hard in any profession, but as an entrepreneur, you're constantly thinking about yourself. And so, what you see a lot of times with people is you do your company and it all fails and falls apart. And then you go home and you have nothing because you've ruined that as well. And so you got to be really careful and thoughtful about, when they talk about balance, it doesn't mean equal time, but you've got to, what I say is, like, you got to put the big balls in first, and, like, for me would be like, I try to have dinner with my family every night, and I try to take my kids to school every morning, and I put those things are in my calendar. Don't move those things, and then everything else kind of falls in. So that's one thing is, like, and the jury's still out. I'm, like, 10 years in, so I got a long ways to go, and I make myself accountable by saying it's not saying that I'm nailing it, but saying that I'm trying. And then, do I live up to my potential as an entrepreneur? I hope someday that somebody says professionally, I hope somebody says I was a good entrepreneur. And I personally feel like I'm a long way from proving that. So, but that's something I really aspire that would be said about me at some point.
Last one. This is a tricky question. Comes with a price. What's your favorite city in Europe? It cannot be London. It's an easy one, right?
No, it's not London. I haven't spent much time here, so it probably isn't fair to say Barcelona. But there are so many great cities in Europe. I mean, Paris is an amazing city. Actually, I was in Edinburgh last year. It was an amazing city. There's so much history, all the golf history in Scotland. Geneva, Switzerland is a beautiful country. Now I'm just sort of pandering to everyone.
Yeah.
Vienna
you got
is
a T-shirt.
amazing. Venice is amazing. The Nordics, Sweden, Stockholm. We just went to Iceland.
So you mentioned all the European countries, save for Moldova, I think.
I haven't been to Moldova. Europe's great. I love Europe, and we're in the Western United States. There's no history in the Western United States, or not much history. I was just in Boston last week, and but just the history of Europe and the culture of Europe is unmatched around the world. So,
Derek, you've been wearing that T-shirt for 3 years. I mean, you probably washed it. I gave it to you 3 years ago. Maybe you want to have the new one free.
Why do you guys act like it's such a big deal? It's a
All right.
T-shirt.
You want to put it
It
on?
looks like you just funded my company or something.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. It's a T-shirt, guys.
I mean, he flew all the way from
Thank you.
Silicon Valley. At least I can give him a T-shirt, right?
He did tell me though, because
No.
my wife just had a baby 2 weeks ago, and I'm here, barely. And I told him I might not make it, and I said, but I do want one of those shirts. And he said, because I saw the pictures, because all the teams wearing them.
Yeah.
And he said, well,
There are no more.
there's only one if you come.
I think Carlos threatened somebody.
So, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming and for being here too.
Thank you very
So.
much.